Imagine a group of teenagers, barely old enough to vote, sitting in their bedrooms surrounded by a few computers, energy drinks, and a curiosity that knew no bounds. Now, picture them infiltrating one of the most secure intelligence agencies in the world, the CIA. Sounds like a Hollywood plot, doesn't it? But this isn't a movie. It's a real-life story that stunned governments, cybersecurity experts, and the public alike. Today, we're diving into one of the most bizarre and unexpected stories in modern cyber history: the kids who hacked the CIA. In the early 2010s, hacking wasn't just a technical skill. It was a culture. Teenagers worldwide were diving deep into the world of code, finding vulnerabilities in systems and pushing boundaries just for the thrill of it. Some hacked into their school systems to change grades, some broke into local networks to prank their friends. But then there were those who dreamed big, kids who weren't satisfied with just small targets. For these ambitious hackers, nothing was off limits, not even the CIA. One of the main figures in this story is a teenager from the UK named Kane. Growing up in a quiet town, Gamble wasn't your typical hacker. He didn't have high-end equipment or a team of cyber experts guiding him. What he had was sheer curiosity and a deep-seated anger about political issues. He saw the US government, particularly the CIA and other intelligence agencies, as having unchecked power, and he wanted to make a point. Gamble's operation was shockingly simple, but his target list was anything but ordinary. He managed to breach personal accounts and devices of some of the most powerful people in the US intelligence community. His targets included then CIA Director John Brennan, former Secretary of Homeland Security Jed Johnson, and even top officials from the FBI. This wasn't just a prank or an attempt to steal money. Gamble was looking for classified information, and he didn't stop until he got it. Now, how did a teenager from the UK get past some of the most sophisticated defenses in the world? It turns out he didn't need to be an elite hacker or a coding prodigy. His primary method was social engineering, a tactic that involves manipulating people into revealing sensitive information rather than cracking systems through brute force. Gamble and his group would call up tech support or phone companies, impersonating their targets to reset passwords or get access to sensitive accounts. It's surprising how easily some critical accounts were breached this way. For example, in the case of CIA Director John Brennan, Gamble was able to gather enough personal information about him from public sources to impersonate him effectively. He managed to call up Brennan's service providers, convincing them to give him access to Brennan's email accounts and even his personal files. And it wasn't just about accessing the accounts. Gamble was bold enough to actually speak with Brennan's tech support teams and, in some cases, even to Brennan's family members. His confidence and ability to stay calm made his ploys almost foolproof. This kind of attack, where the hacker gains access by tricking people rather than hacking machines, is often called social engineering, and it's surprisingly effective. Unlike complex hacking methods that require extensive coding knowledge, social engineering relies on human psychology. It's about finding the weak link in the security chain, which, as Gamble demonstrated, often turns out to be the people themselves. Once Gamble had access to Brennan's accounts, he didn't waste any time. He downloaded sensitive documents, including detailed intelligence files and personal information on numerous government officials. He even leaked some of these details online, creating a media frenzy. News outlets picked up on the story, and suddenly the CIA was forced to acknowledge that one of its highest-ranking officials had been hacked, not by a rival government, but by a teenager. Gamble didn't work alone. He was part of an informal group of young hackers who called themselves Crackers with Attitude. The group's name, which sounds like something out of a teenage comedy, masked their ability to wreak havoc. Crackers with Attitude saw themselves as activists, often claiming their actions were motivated by opposition to US foreign policies. However, as they hacked deeper, their actions turned more reckless. One of the most shocking aspects of this story is how the hackers taunted their targets. Gamble and his group didn't just gain access to information. They would call up their victims to mock them. Imagine a CIA official responsible for safeguarding national security suddenly getting a call from a teenager telling them that their private information had been exposed. This wasn't just a security breach, it was a public embarrassment. And for an intelligence agency, public humiliation can be worse than the loss of data itself. While social engineering played a massive role in these breaches, it's essential to understand why this worked so well. Many high-level officials use their personal devices for work communications, and these devices are often connected to regular customer support services, not high-security government systems. Gamble exploited this very gap in security, the vulnerability of personal accounts and the information one can gather from social media and other online sources. With just a few details about someone's life, a hacker can convince a customer service representative that they are the actual account owner. And once they're in, they have almost full access. The actions of Gamble and his group weren't limited to just hacking and taunting. They leaked sensitive information which raised alarms in both the US and the UK governments. Imagine the risk posed by having officials' personal details, classified documents, and contact information of top US officials circulating on the internet. The leaks included not only sensitive communication communications, but even the private numbers of senior officials. The CIA and FBI were forced to implement new security measures and conduct internal investigations. It was a sobering reminder of how the smallest security lapse could lead to major breaches. After months of relentless hacking, taunting, and leaking, Gamble's luck eventually ran out. Law enforcement officials in the UK tracked him down, arresting him at his home. At the time of his arrest, Gamble was just 18 years old. In court, he admitted to the charges, and his defense team argued that he was driven by a misguided sense of political activism. Nevertheless, the court took the offense seriously, sentencing Gamble to 2 years in a youth detention center. The fallout from Gamble's actions was significant. Not only did it embarrass one of the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world, but it also sparked discussions around cybersecurity and the risks posed by social engineering attacks. The CIA and other government agencies were forced to reevaluate their security protocols, and this case became a key example of why even the most secure systems can be vulnerable. This story of the kids who hacked the CIA is a fascinating example of how the digital age has shifted the balance of power. In the past, spying on a government would have required elaborate disguises, physical break-ins, and extensive surveillance. But today, with just a computer, a phone, and a bit of boldness, a teenager can infiltrate some of the world's most powerful institutions. And for intelligence agencies around the world, this was a wake-up call. It highlighted that in the era of the internet, national security is as much about understanding human psychology as it is about protecting data. The case of Kane, Gamble, and Krakaz with Attitude left a lasting impact on both the CIA and the general public. It was a shocking reminder of how the seemingly impenetrable walls of intelligence agencies could be broken down by sheer audacity and some clever social engineering. Even now, years later, this case serves as a lesson for governments, corporations, and individuals about the importance of cybersecurity and the evolving nature of threats in the digital world. So next time you think of hackers as shadowy figures in dark rooms filled with lines of code, remember the kids who sat in their bedrooms, called up CIA tech support, and turned the world of intelligence upside down. This isn't just a story about hacking. It's a story about how the smallest cracks in security can open doors to the biggest secrets, and how the digital age has changed the face of espionage forever. Stay tuned, because there are plenty more tales of audacious hackers and digital daredevils that remind us of the power and danger that come with living in a connected world.